Hello everyone and welcome back to my YouTube channel. I'm super excited about the card that I'm showcasing today in this video. This one actually was inspired by a previous card that I made where I tried to create glowing stars and moons with my Copic marker. That one was the card on Thursday. With the new digital stamp from Rochelle Anna Miller. So maybe you saw it, maybe you didn't. Definitely check it out if you haven't seen it yet, because it was truly the inspiration and the Kickstarter for this card. Now the stencil that I'm using is the City Walks from Hello Bluebird, and I'm also going to use the big Christmas greetings for my greeting on this card. Now I wanted to again try the glow, and this time have the glow also on my critters and not only in the sky. So therefore, as you can see, I never did this, and so I had no idea how to start with the coloring, and I started as usual on the cat, and then I decided, well, maybe it's handy if I first go with a really light yellow marker to help me already establish that glow a little bit, and then I can still go over it as I'm doing right here to emphasize the glow again, but just to have some sort of a guidance. And then to not forget that I already did it on the two other critters as well. Now in my head I already had some kind of an idea where the images were going to go around the lantern. And so the glow is every time different on each of the critters. And I also decided to do other browns. Just again, there are so many critters out there, and I think brown is one of the most used combos for them. There are of course a lot of gray markers as well, and they would work for these images as well, I think. But since I always go for the browns whenever I can choose between gray and browns, I thought maybe it's handy to do again several combinations, and you probably already know a lot of them because I reuse my combinations all the time. Once you have some combos that you really like, it's handy to just grab them and have fun because you already know that it will work out. So here I did my first layer of the bear. I went over it again with the yellow to emphasize the glow again, and then I'm adding my second layer. You know me, this is Transotype Perfect Coloring Paper, and personally I find that if I add a second layer, that the blend helps, gets better and better, or there is more depth or more shadows and all those things. So that's why I'm adding a second layer, but I'm definitely keeping in mind the glow. I'm also going over the yellow every time with my lightest marker of my combination because it still is there. You see it even when there is a light brown color on top of it. So that's what I really like. And so here I'm building up everything. Again, it was just because I went outside of my comfort zone in the other card that I thought, well, maybe I can try it again and see what it will end up like, and I truly love this. So I really hope that the past video and this one encourages you to also maybe try something new, because it's a lot of fun. You just have to try it and improve and get more use of it. Normally I start with my darkest, as I started with a cat, but I think adding the glow from the beginning, sort of having a guidance over there as well, really helps with the coloring of this. The bear went way smoother than the cat because, well, I had an idea on how to start coloring. And I think it's also something that is done by other people, already having some sort of a guidance by just using a really soft marker that can help you with that. This card is going to be a bit of a scene, really simple again, and just to keep that simplicity, I decided to do all of the details with reds and then teal blues on the other clothing of these critters. You can of course change it up and differentiate the colors every time, but you will see that, well, the red is just an easy color for Christmas cards, it always works. And then the teal was actually one of the, once I tried to create a glow on my background with distress inks, I decided also to use a teal kind of transition between the yellow and the darker blue area. So that's why, no, that's not why, but that was inspired because of my colors that I used on the clothing. And that's how I tend to, even when I'm making scene cards, keep it as simple as possible by having my colors return. Some people will love it, others probably won't, but I really like that. So here as well, a brown combination that I use very often, and then of course adding a bit of that yellow again. Whenever I go over it with the brown, it of course gets more subtle, the yellow glow, but personally it's still there. And with the background that I'm creating later on, with the glow, even if the yellow would sort of disappear, I still think that just by the illusion of creating glow in the background, people will tend to still see the yellow, even if it's covered with the browns on the images as well. So here, fixing the mistakes, you know me, the colorless blender is always really close by whenever I'm coloring with my Copic markers, because it's just handy. I never stay inside of the lines, never. I don't think that there is any image that I've colored or any images for any card where I didn't need it at least once. So next up I decided to do the lantern, also the yellow again, but when you have the matching dies, they will actually cut out the windows of the lantern, so you don't have all of the yellow here. But I decided to just go with that because I was going to use yellow distress inks behind the lantern, and this way I sort of have yellow also on that small area that is still not completely die cut from the lantern. I'm using some grays here, really simple, building it up, and then also having that yellow glow just around the area where the windows are for the lantern. And a second layer, of course. And as you can see, in the beginning I'm quite subtle with my dark colors, but then here I'm completely taking it over. I see that there is way more area to add one of my darker markers, and so that's what I do the second time around. First time I try to keep it subtle, because you never know, and it's easier to add darker colors on top of lighter ones than to remove the darker color if you add it too much, in your opinion. And then of course fixing the mistakes. There is a lot of repetition in my coloring, because, well, I make mistakes, I fix them with a colorless blender, and I reuse colors because I love that. So that's what I'm doing here as well. Also this teal and red, wonderful color combination in my opinion. I love the combo. It's vibrant, it's bright, it's really festive at the same time. And also, since I already added the yellow also on the clothing, it actually also helps me with the guidance where I had to add my shadows. So that was handy. It was really handy. And now my final part of the coloring. Also, this would have worked as well with greens. I thought about it, but then I thought again, how can I maybe create a glow later on? And well, green would have made it a bit difficult to repeat that in the sky. So that's why I went for this one. But you even can make this card, in my opinion, without doing the whole background kind of thing and just leave it white. I love a white background. And just stamp the sentiment with black ink or the same ink as your images if you use another ink, and just have it like that. People will already have the illusion in their heads that it's a night sky, even when you're not using dark colors. Just if you have that lantern, or they can be there in daylight and the lantern isn't lighted yet. There are many possibilities. So here are the matching dies. I'm going to use them to cut out all of these gorgeous images, and then let's do that background. So first I wanted to try out whether the thing in my head would work as well on the card itself. I have an A2 sized card panel. This one is die cut with Mama Elephant basic rectangles, and now I'm trying to see whether the sentiment will fit as well together with the lantern and the critters. So this was my idea in my head, and I was really happy that there was just enough space with that big lantern to do this, so then I could start on my background. Therefore, I masked off my edges. It has been a while, but I'm stitching details, keeping it wide whenever I can. So I'm adding my purple tape right at that edge. And once that is adhered, I'm going to take my distress inks and start ink blending. So first of all, for the light, I decided to go with squeezed lemonade. And then to get that transition as well as the teal in there, I decided to also take cracked pistachio and peacock feathers. And then of course I have some really dark colors, the chipped sapphire and black soot. So I needed that placement of the lantern to know where to start, and then once I added that yellow, I could just go all around it to get that glow and that night sky out there. Now once I blended a bit further into the lower area of my panel, I realized that I had to take my stencil to create my grounding before I ink blended all over that. So therefore I took the Drifts and Hills stencil, and that way I could prevent that the grounding was going to be all night sky and that the critters were floating in the air. So here I'm working my way around that yellow. Now I must admit that I went with a really light hand, and so I had to go back and forth a bit. And then for all the blues I decided to use the same blending brush. Really easy because I was going to make a transition. However, I kept for the yellow color another blending brush. So here's that stencil, and I sort of forgot how far that the words were going to go, but at least it was below the lantern, so by just adding that lantern for a bit, I could see where I had to add my grounding. And then I could, without a doubt, continue with the darker color as well. And I know here there is not really a blend between the colors, but I will go back and forth to get that blend that I want. And then to really help me with having that dark night sky, I'm just adding some black soot on the edges, even in that corner, to help me. And currently I quite have a large area with the glow, but that will minimize as soon as I'm working my way back to get that blend that I want between all of the colors. It's the same as with the Copic markers. You can always go over lighter areas with darker ones. It's harder to do it in reverse and have first too many dark colors and then trying to get rid of it. Also, having the same blending brush helps me with the blend. From time to time it will also imply that your colors will be a bit darker if you return from darker to lighter inks, but I don't mind actually. This helps me, so and it gives also the result that I am aiming for, so that's good. As you can see here, there is way more darker colors than I had originally. And then I'm back going over that yellow. And how cool is that? I will later on also add some white gouache splatters to have some fun with the snow kind of vibe. But now let's first do a bit of the grounding as well. This was a bit too stark white, so I just decided to have a really diluted version of my blending brush, my blue blending brush. I sort of tried to pick up cracked pistachio, but as you can see there is quite a lot of the other inks on there, so there is not at all cracked pistachio on the bottom. It's a bit of a combination of all of the other colors as well. But it's still way lighter than all of the rest, so that it gives still the illusion of snow in my opinion, so that's what I like. Testing it out. again, and then we can continue once I'm happy. And how cool is the reindeer peeking from behind the lantern? I just love it. And then the bear is just above the falala. Yeah, really sweet. If you would not add the kitten so close to the lantern, then I think you need to snip off a bit of the feet of the reindeer. But ooh, I decided to add the kitten just right before that, so I didn't have to trim anything off. And then I can remove my purple tape. See that gorgeous white border? I just love that. And then I'm trying not to smudge my panel while removing the final purple tape. So that's my card base now. I had to add the sentiment, so definitely make sure that your panel is completely dry. If you're not sure or you want to continue straight away, use your heat gun if you have one to heat set everything, and then don't forget to use an anti-static powder if you have it too. If you don't have that, there are other solutions as well, like baby powder. Oh, the smell of it is gorgeous. But I have this anti-static powder too. The smell of the powder inside of this one is also fabulous. Stamping that out a few times with Versamark clear embossing ink, and then I will use my Ranger embossing powder white superfine detail to get this sentiment white heat embossed on my panel. If there is any embossing powder that is stuck on other areas, I just brush it off. If it's on a tiny area in between the letters, for example, I often use a really fine tool, for example a craft knife, because it's way handier than all of those hairs from the paintbrushes that you might have. So therefore I use a really small tool, but in this case I prepped it really well. Apparently I had just a bit of powder sticking around the sentiment and not in between. And then I could start adhering my images. To help me, I first adhered the lantern and the reindeer together, and then I could add thin foam squares everywhere. So once the lantern actually is placed, it's really easy to get the rest in place, but the lantern with the yellow glow just had to be placed first. This way I was sure that it would all work, and then I could add all of the rest. And I really loved assembling this card just because I sort of tried that glow while coloring, and it's only once you adhere everything that you see that it worked, that you thought about everything, that your initial idea worked out. And I'm really happy with this, and I definitely want to try it more in the future, to go a bit more outside of my comfort. Now it's with just adding glow, and I think I can still improve, so I will repeat that in a different way, but I really like it, so I hope that you like this too. Adding white splatters with my white gouache all over. This is really a wintry, snowy kind of scene, and then I can add this panel on top of a card base. Now there are many ways to still add embellishments or details to this card. I decided to just add some stickles to all of those white areas on the heads, and I left it like that. There are, again, you can add embellishments, you can add glossy accents if you want to, but I think this works. Just some stickles, and that is my card up close. So I hope that you like it, that you're as excited as I am about this card. If you have any questions, you can leave them down below in the comments. I want to thank you all for stopping by. I hope that you like this video, and I wish you an incredible day, and I'll be back soon with some new crafty inspiration. Bye!